This is a face you better start to get real familiar with because if you saw Scream 6 in theaters, you saw this guy as Frankie, and you're going to be seeing him as Matteo and the Night Agent coming up on Netflix on March the 23rd. It's Andre Anthony. Andre, how you doing, man?
I'm good, man. That's a beautiful intro. Thank you for having me.
I mean, hey, you're the one that's doing it. I'm just saying. I mean, you're the one that's out there. And Scream 6, actually, your first like major theatrical role, and you're joining just a huge franchise. How excited were you to just get into this thing?
Definitely. I knew, it's funny, like at the beginning, I guess it doesn't really hit you as much until you're actually there and you're seeing all the set pieces and then you kind of get a taste of the fan base and everything. But yeah, it was a little bit intimidating at first, but everybody was just such a pleasure to work with and it helped me ease into it right off the bat. So it was great.
Now, I want to give you guys a little warning because we're going to talk some spoilery type stuff here because I know the diehards want to know some of the stuff that's happened like behind the scenes and with the movie and everything like that. But first, I want to ask you because you play Frankie in the movie. You're coming in as a new guy. Did you ever think at any point you're like, oh my gosh, like could I be like the Ghostface killer in this thing, the new guy, the guy that everybody suspects? And there were odds for you possibly being Ghostface too? Did you wrap your head around
Totally.
that at any point?
What's hilarious is like, once you get there, they essentially they'll brief you on your character and everything that you need to know, but they do a really good job of kind of keeping their own secrets.
Oh,
Like they
nice.
won't give you all of the necessary information. But it's kind of funny as you're like piecing things together, you're seeing like the sides for the day, and you're like, okay, this looks like they're doing this tomorrow. So this happens, and then this happens. So you're kind of piecing it together as you go. But I think in terms of my work schedule, I was like, okay, if I really was potentially Ghostface, they would need me for many more days to flesh this out. But yeah, at first, even when I got the part, I was like, okay, I see what Frankie's doing here. But then it becomes clear that maybe they're kind of throwing that as a bit of a red herring, or maybe he could come back later. But yeah, they definitely keep things interesting for everybody on the set for sure.
So people, we've seen this iconic costume a lot, the Ghostface costume. Of course, you see it like during Halloween, you see it at comic conventions and all over the place. But what's it like when you're on a set like this and it's like real and and it's all right there? What's it like to see that iconic character just in front of you in that setting?
You know what? I actually personally, since the set that I was at was at the frat house mostly. So there were kind of like some ghost face masky things around, but I didn't actually see the entire costume of somebody actually of the actual
Oh,
ghost face movie
that's a bummer. That's a
in
little bit of a
it.
bummer.
Yes, but yeah, it's just, as soon as you see that face though, it really just does something to you. And I think that that was a really exciting part about having this movie in New York is like, it's around Halloween time and everybody's kind of maybe wearing a ghost
Mhm.
face mask. Maybe, they could be a killer, they could not be, maybe they're just dressing up. But as soon as you see that, it definitely it keeps you on edge.
How surprised were you when you found out who the killers were actually going to be?
I was shocked, especially because, as the movie goes on, obviously, as you said, spoiler alert, but there are, when Leanna's character dies,
Mhm.
you're like, okay, well, obviously that kind of rules it out. It's funny when I was actually at a screening with a few of my friends, it was interesting to like kind of gauge who they thought it would be. So I would kind of like whisper, like, "Who do you think it is?" And then one of my friends said, "Oh, I think it might be Leanna's character," and I'm like, "Oh, interesting." And then she dies, and then she's like, "Okay, never mind, I'm wrong." And I'm like, "Okay, let's just wait, see what but yeah, I mean, it was, it's always a shocker, but I think this one was especially so.
What is it about these movies you think? I mean, we're six of them in now, and usually when you get to this point in a lot of different franchises, it starts to get stale, or it starts to get predictable, and things like that. What is it about the Scream franchise for you? You think that just makes fans just love each one even more as they keep going because it just sort of feels that way.
Totally. I think what they've done such a good job of historically is having us really care about the characters. And I think everybody's always interested in the dynamics of the characters. And as they get to know them and love them, there's always that thing in the back of their head of, because Ghostface has been so unpredictable so many times, it's like, could my favorite character be the one that's pulling off the mask this time? Um, so I think that's probably at the heart of it. And then, especially like in the case of the sixth installment here, moving it to New York, it changes everything. It adds this whole dynamic of this franticness of the city and being on a subway, and it's elbow room only, and you just don't know who could be right next to you. So I think that that change of setting is particularly what made this one really exciting. And watching it for the first time, I really kind of felt that frantic energy, and it definitely keeps you on your toes.
So this is obviously looks like a very fun cast. Some of them been together for a while, some of them hasn't, but you could just see the chemistry between everybody. I want you to tell me your favorite story from when the cameras weren't rolling.
You know what? That's a great point. Is especially me coming into this environment, it was like, okay, a lot of these people had come back from Scream 5, so they already have this rapport. You're kind of like the new kid at school, hoping that everybody's gonna be welcoming. Um, I think what I loved a lot in my personal case is the stuff that I was filming was the first week of production.
Oh,
So when I got there in Montreal, the rest of the cast had just got there as well. So I was lucky enough to be able to, spend some time with them. A week before we started filming, we would hang out, get to know each other, and yeah, they just welcomed me with open arms. But like you said, it's the chemistry is that they genuinely do all love each other, and it definitely translates on screen.
what do you think the future for these movies is?
Man, I think Matt and Tyler are so creative, and if they'll have them back to continue doing these movies, it's like they're always coming up with something new and fresh. Just like you said, it's like they could potentially get a bit stale, but they're always coming up with something to bring the audiences back. And the possibilities are endless. So I think this new setting was very exciting, and I'd be excited to see what they come up with next.
No doubt about it, man. We're talking to Andre Anthony, of course, who played Frankie in Scream 6, which you can see in theaters now. Now we want to switch gears, though, to his new show that he's got coming out on Netflix, and that is The Night Agent. And I mean, this thing's got so many twists and turns and just such an immersive story. What was it like to be a part of a show like this where it kind of keeps you guessing every single second you're watching it?
Oh man, at first I had read the book by Matthew Quirk, and it was exactly that. It keeps you so engaged. You're kind of wondering, like, as the chapters go on, you're thinking of your own theories of who could possibly, um, be doing someone wrong, or how this will translate to the next thing. And then, I think Sean Ryan, when he had all the scripts laid out, there were a few things that he had changed kind of logistically in terms of the book. But, after every episode, it really made you want to go like, okay, what is going to happen next? And then it throws you for a loop in the next part. And then, so it just keeps you engaged. And then obviously the action is another thing that I think people will be really excited about.
And we can't say when we meet Matteo in this show. I could say that's just, I'm not trying to let any phones at the Netflix basement ring and get us both in trouble. So we're not going to do that. But I'll ask you this: how surprised were you at where his journey was going in the show?
Ooh, yeah, it was very surprising. It's essentially Mateo he's a character that has been done wrong. He's looking for revenge. And yeah, it's a really fun character in that sense, where obviously, like you said, I can't really say too much about it just because of the nature of who he is. But he he's very unpredictable, and I think he's one of those characters that's put in the show to really make the audience think twice about what they might think is going on. Um, but yeah, as I was reading the episodes, even as I was auditioning for the part and talking to Sean about it was like, oh my God. And then you read the next thing that he does, and you're like, wow, okay. So we're definitely in for a ride here. But it was a lot of fun to kind of talk about, his motivations with the creatives. And yeah, I'm really excited to see how people respond to it.
This is a conspiracy like so many others. And there's, so, like I said, so many twists and turns with a lot of the things that happen in the show. I actually feel like there's a couple of twists with your character too, actually. In reading the book, did that kind of help prepare you for where that was going and when those twists were going to be happening? Or were you still kind of a little bit surprised as you were going through the scripts and going, oh, so this is what we're doing?
Totally. Yeah. Yeah, I think that there was a lot of stuff with Matteo's character because he's not as, prominent maybe in the book. It's a little bit ambiguous as to kind of who's involved with what in terms of his side of the story. So it was really cool. Also, I think, acting wise too, it was nice to kind of have a fresh start with the scripts of the show as opposed to like, okay, this is what he does in the book. Maybe I'll do it exactly like that. So it was kind of just taking some elements from the book and going, okay, this is the direction that we're headed. And then it also gave me a little bit more freedom because it's maybe not as detailed in the book.
No doubt. And you talk about the action that's in this series, which is there's a lot of great stuff in there. You actually get to be a part of a little bit of that. How much of that were you actually able to do? Were you actually able to do some of your own stunts and everything like that? And how was it kind of getting in there and being able to do something like that, which you haven't done a whole lot of up to this point in your career?
Absolutely. Yeah, it's a great point. The stunt team on this show was incredible, and um, as soon as I met them, we talked about, okay, these are some things that we can do. I was super eager to try to do as much as I possibly could when it came to the stage combat and the firearms and that kind of stuff. So we definitely works pretty hard to try to choreograph those kinds of things. And then Gabe, who plays Peter, he's very well trained in martial arts and combat and stuff. So he did a lot of that. So I was looking to him and the rest of the stunt team to try to do as much as I possibly could, for sure.
Oh, no doubt. And you can see that when you watch the show too. You guys will understand when you actually get a chance to watch it, you'll totally get it.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
was there a specific episode that you can remember that really shocked you and you went to yourself, okay, now I'm hooked? Obviously, there's, episode one, I think hooks me, but there's also an episode, I think it's maybe, I want to say three for me, where I went at three, where I went, okay, now you really got me.
Totally. Yeah, yeah, even reading the pilot, I think that they do an amazing job of, introducing the relationships, what's really going on. There's a killer action sequence in there. And then yeah, I would say that's a good one. Three is kind of the point where I think that it opens up different possibilities where you're going, okay, maybe this is a lot more than just kind of like an action show. Um, I think that's really the point where audiences will start to come up with their own theories, which is an exciting thought.
It's interesting to me too, because I don't know how you felt being a part of it, but as I'm watching it, I know there's 10 episodes in my head, right? But at the same time, it feels like every episode, I feel like this could end at any second. Like
Yeah.
at any second, this could just be over. Did you kind of feel that urgency too when you were doing this?
Definitely, definitely. And I think that's also the beauty of the show is they kind of introduce this theory that nobody's really safe. And as the show goes on, you start to like, even if you think that this is exactly who I think is involved, or and then you'll get a moment in one of the episodes where it completely debunks your theory and you're forced to like reevaluate everything. and I think that's what keeps everything exciting is even if you know that this guy is the main character or this is the main cast, you never quite know if they're actually safe. And I think you see that in some of the biggest shows like Game of Thrones or those kinds of things where it's like, oh my God, you see your favorite character and they might not make it. So I think that's a great way to keep everybody engaged.
No doubt about it. This might be a hard question for you to answer. And if you can't, I totally get it because we're trying to avoid spoiler territory here. And I think we're doing a good job. But was there a particular character or particular actor that you really enjoyed having scenes with in the show?
You know what? Yeah, I'm thinking about this.
I know there's some names you can't say. I will say that. I know because I've seen it. So I know there's some names you can't say.
Totally. I do have a particular name, but maybe if we revisit this after the show comes out, I will say. But I would say just Gabe. Gabe was just a great guy to work with because he was just so committed to the show and, like I said, to the combat and all that stuff. And yeah, we definitely have a couple fight scenes in there, and it was just something that I hadn't experienced much, as you kind of touched on earlier, but it was great to kind of have that guidance from the stunt team and him and really dive into that stuff. And I think it makes everything a bit more enjoyable when you kind of see that kind of action firsthand. So yeah.
See, if you weren't intrigued enough, now you need to watch the show to see who he's talking about because you're probably going to know who it is once you start watching. As a matter of fact, I know you're going to know who it is once you start watching it and get into it. Andre, before I let you go, you get to be a part of such a great franchise like Scream 6, and hopefully we feel like hopefully the future of the Night Agent, we get to see a little bit more of that as well. But are there any other like big franchises? Like you could have your pick of the litter. You can be a part of one major franchise. What's the one that's at the top of your list right now?
Ooh, that's a tough question. You know what? I don't know if I have anything in particular, but I will say that having a little taste of the action and all that stuff with Night Agent and the combat and stuff, that kind of, really sparked my interest and my love for that kind of genre. Actually, now that I'm thinking of it, a franchise that I do love and I'm a huge fan of is the John Wick franchise.
I was waiting for you to say John Wick. I was sitting here waiting for you to say John Wick.
I've just been seeing billboards all over here in LA, and I can't wait to see it. Hopefully, I'm going to see it this week. But I'm just such a fan of those movies because Keanu, he's doing a lot of his own stuff, and he's definitely an inspiration because you definitely see the difference when he's doing it and how much more engaged you are. So yeah, I'll say John Wick then. We'll speak that into existence.
Not a bad answer at all. Not a bad answer at all. We'd love to see that. And you can see him right now actually in Scream 6, which is probably still in theaters where you're at. Well, I'm sure it'll be coming out on digital HD and all that stuff here soon as well. And then you've got The Night Agent, which is coming to Netflix on March the 23rd. And it's neither one is one that you really want to miss. And I got to tell you, this guy, watch out for this guy. Andre Anthony, thanks so much for your time, man. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much, man. I appreciate you having me.